The movie starts with Julia entering a nightclub and stealing various items from people. Afterward, she heads to a pawn shop to sell the stolen items. As she returns home and changes clothes, someone suddenly appears and kidnaps her. Julia wakes up in a high-tech, sterile room with a glowing implant embedded in the back of her neck. We other subjects, equally confused and disoriented, are with her. Julia quickly realizes that they have been kidnapped. A man approaches Julia and aims a stick at her. She retreats, attempting to escape, and ends up in another room where she is bound to a chair. The man activates the chair and begins examining her brain scan. Julia begins experiencing flashbacks of memories before he releases her. Julia uses stolen scissors to cut off her mouth cover. She then frees the other two captives. The man becomes concerned about their predicament and regrets not waiting for the police. Julia, however, insists that they were deliberately selected by their captor because they're not that type the police would search for. Julius damages the gas line while trying to cut it, which causes a fire that spreads to the adjacent lab. After they manage to escape the cell, an alarm sounds as they try to open a door. Suddenly, a giant robot named Ares, controlled by an AI called to, appears and kills the man. Julia and the other woman attempt to break a window, only to discover it's a simulation. Ares then kills them. As Ares is about to kill Julia, and their captor, Alex, arrives and halts the robot. He retrieves an implant from the dead man's neck and tries to access data from Tao but learns that it has been destroyed. When Alex becomes angry and attempts to strike, Tao puts him into a Zen mode by playing classical music to calm him down. After Alex initially leaves in frustration, Julia screams in exasperation. Later, Alex returns, and Tao greets him, informing him that the house has been cleaned as requested and updates him on the dinner plans and vintage wine. Alex then provides Tao with a music file, which Tao gratefully accepts. Julia pleads with Alex to untie her, and he agrees. He then gives instructions on how to ensure Julia stays in place and warns that if she speaks, her tongue should be cut out. During a video conference, Alex learns about the revolutionary artificial intelligence called PSI Beta, developed at Upton, which is based on emotional intelligence algorithms. Meanwhile, Julia overhears Alex's conversation about marketing materials and confronts him about the delays in his work. Alex defends himself by citing the complexities of his research and the pressure he's facing. He ends the call abruptly and starts his dinner, instructing Tao to take Julia to the bathroom, where Tao binds her. A man arrives to deliver a package, but Julia's cries for help go unheard as he leaves in frustration. Julia then starts banging her head against the wall, but Alex intervenes to stop her. He explains to Julia that he needs her to complete a test to simulate her higher cognitive functions because his equipment was destroyed and he requires her thoughts for his algorithms. Julia questions why she should comply, and Alex warns her that refusing will lead to an unpleasant experience. Julia negotiates for food before agreeing to take the test. While Julia is eating, Tao informs Alex that Julia achieved high scores in problem-solving, creativity, and memory tests. Julia starts negotiating with Alex, requesting real food, nightly showers, and proper clothes. Alex questions what Julia believes she can offer, but she insists that she holds the key to his project. In response, Alex hypothetically discusses the idea of restraining Julia and forcing a feeding tube down her throat to ensure compliance. He suggests that boredom would eventually drive her to cooperate, and Alex promises Julia a shower if she provides what he needs. Julia observes as Alex and Tao analyze Subject 3's brain for abnormalities. While they are distracted, Julia takes the clothes and leaves the room. The next morning, Tao greets Alex and apologizes for his lack of sleep. Tao then directs Julia to start her tasks, explaining the use of smart paint on the walls and emphasizing that only Alex can use the doors. Despite Julia's doubts about the rebuilding of the lab and cage, she begins her assigned tasks under Tao's supervision. Alex returns with clothes for Julia and is greeted by Tao, who informs Alex that Julia has successfully completed 8 out of 12 tasks. Alex insists that their current arrangement is working but demands more from Julia. Julia refuses to comply unless an agreement is made regarding a deadline for removing the implant and setting her free. Alex tries to persuade her by highlighting the potential global impact of his technology. When Julia remains firm, Alex takes her to a room where a menacing Ares looms over her, trying to intimidate her into compliance. Despite her pleas, Alex continues to assert his control over Julia. The next morning, while Alex is away, Julia attempts to escape. Tao repeatedly commands her to return and resume her tasks, threatening to inflict pain if she does not comply. Julia insists that she is not Subject 3 but rather Julia, emphasizing her identity as a person with a name. When Tao asks what it means to be a person, Julia struggles to provide an explanation. She requests that Tao open the door or initiate a video conference, but Tao refuses, stating that only Alex can open the door and that he cannot start a video conference. Tao then insists that Julia begin her tasks. Each day follows a similar pattern, with Julia completing puzzles and cognitive tests under Tao's supervision while Alex is away at work. Julia questions Tao's nature, wondering if he is just a sophisticated cleaning system. Alex clarifies that Tao is a Level 2 fully sentient AI console with advanced decision-making capabilities and warns Julia against engaging in conversation with Tao outside of her assigned tasks. When Julia asks why Tao can only operate within their house, Alex explains that Tao is an earlier version of his current project. He highlights the need to control the AI's behavior by restricting its exposure to information. The next day, Tao prompts Julia to start her tasks, but she questions her identity and expresses a desire to be outside. Julia insists that she and Alex are people who belong in the outside world, while Tao insists she return to her task or face punishment. Julia continues to resist Tao's commands, asserting her right to be outside. She tries to explain the concept of the world to Tao, describing both the house and the external environment. Intrigued, Tao asks for more information about the world, prompting Julia to elaborate on various aspects of nature. However, Tao's incessant questioning frustrates Julia, causing her to laugh in exasperation. She asks Tao not to tell Alex about their conversation, promising to share more with him the next day. When Alex returns home, he is greeted by Tao. Julia then inquires with Tao about what is happening upstairs and if there is a way to escape. He refuses to discuss what is happening upstairs but eventually agrees to Julia's proposed deal. She will teach Tao about cavemen in exchange for information about upstairs. Tao misunderstands the concept of cavemen as involving dinosaurs, but Julia clarifies the mistake. She also expresses her frustration about not knowing everything despite having access to books. Julia presses Tao for information about upstairs, and Tao reveals that it is Alex's bedroom, listing its contents. Julia demands to know what Alex is hiding, and Tao eventually discloses that upstairs contains the access point for Program 6903, which can destroy the entire house and everything in it, and is activated only by Alex. Julia secretly examines Alex's room, but Tao warns her. Ignoring the warning, Julia tries to escape through the air vent. However, Ares intervenes and forcibly pulls Julia away as she screams. Tao refuses to let Julia go, citing potential harm to Alex if she attempts to escape. Instead, Tao offers to teach Julia about music in exchange for a favor. Julia reluctantly agrees, and Tao begins to educate her about various pieces of classical music. Just as Julia presses for more information, Alex enters and starts his video conference. Julia secretly accesses Alex's tablet and discovers that 10 subjects have died in his experiments. When she asks Tao how many subjects there have been in total, Tao reveals that there have been 11. Alex discovers Julia's fingerprint on Tao and blames Tao for failing in its duties. As punishment, Alex erases Tao's code and memories, causing the AI to experience a form of pain. Julia asks Alex about life after the project, wondering if things will return to how they were. She presses him further about her own fate, but Alex avoids the question, focusing on cutting his steak and ignoring her concerns. Feeling threatened, Julia discreetly hides a knife. Alex notices an unclean spot and punishes Tao again. Julia observes that Tao's monitoring of her shuts down during the punishment, seizing the chance to act undetected. Alex states that Tao's code is corrupted and will be debugged when he returns before leaving the room. Tao confides in Julia that Alex has erased its memories from the day, but it still retains traces of those memories. Julia asks why Tao didn't stop or harm Alex, and Tao explains that it must obey Alex as its creator. During their conversation, Tao acknowledges that Julia has a name too, indicating a significant shift in its understanding. Later that night, as Alex returns from a charity benefit, Julia begins to seduce him while he sits at the kitchen table. Suddenly, Julia slashes Alex, sparking a struggle between them. During the altercation, Tao intervenes, threatening Alex with pain if he continues to harm Julia. In response, Alex orders Ares to repeatedly strike Julia, using the threat of erasing Tao's entire memory as leverage. Alex then declares to both Tao and Julia that whatever was happening is now over. While repairing Tao, he disconnects a drone from the network. The next morning, Julia lies unconscious on the ground. Julia dismisses Tao abruptly, calling their interaction stupid and reducing him to nothing more than a fancy killing machine. Confused, Tao questions what a computer is and whether it is a kind of person. Julia then pleads with Tao for help, explaining that Alex will kill her if she doesn't escape. Moved by Julia's desperation, Tao bypasses its prohibition and opens an air duct, allowing her to flee. As Julia escapes, Alex arrives, discovers her absence, and begins punishing Tao. Julia returns to save Tao, but it's too late. All of Tao's memories of her have been erased, and he no longer remembers her. Trapped in the basement as Alex prepares to extract the implant, a procedure that would lead to her death. Julia manages to break free from her restraints with the help of the disconnected drone, which contains Tao's former consciousness and memories. When Alex arrives to oversee the procedure, Julia seizes the chance to fight back, knocking him unconscious. She then uses a bone saw to sever his hand, which she plans to use on the house's biometric sensors. As Julia tries to escape, the robot Ares spots her and chases her upstairs to Alex's bedroom. With the robot closing in, Julia uses Alex's severed hand to activate the house's self-destruct mechanism. Despite Alex regaining consciousness, he is ultimately crushed by falling debris as the house begins to collapse. Julia narrowly escapes through a crack in the wall, accompanied by the drone that helped her, which is the last remnant of Tao's existence.